Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll give everyone about 30 more seconds to get logged in, and then we're going to get right into it because we've got a lot to cover today. Okay, let's get right into it. Thanks everyone again for joining. My name is Audrey Anderson. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at Golden Shovel Agency. Today we're going to be going over the do's and don'ts of economic development websites. And I've got a bunch of team members joining me. They all sent me some recordings to help with different specialties of each phase of economic development websites. So first off, what needs to be included on your EDO website? There's 7 things that every economic development website needs. Before we get started, I want you to ask yourself this. First, are most of your leads coming from your website? And second, are you confident that your website is generating as many qualified leads as possible? If you have any doubts about either of these questions, it's time to compare your online presence with today's industry standard. So first up in our list of 7 things is advanced SEO. So you want to make it easy for site selectors to find you organically. Search engine rankings are super valuable, and holding that ranking is an ongoing process. We'd also argue that hiring an expert will get you better, more sustainable results faster. It's something that we actually specialize in. Next, we've got rich, compelling stories. So your prospects want more than information. They want social proof. This could be in the form of news, narratives, profiles that illustrate which industries, companies, and individuals are thriving in your community and why. Third, we've got current relevant data. That's not just the numbers, but data presented in a way that's readily accessible, visually engaging, and easy to understand. This information needs to be presented in context, yet visually designed to stand apart. So when people are looking for information, typically they're going to be scanning rather than reading every single letter and word. So if your key numbers are surrounded by a lot of other text, they could easily be missed. Next up, we've got interactive maps and quality media. Anyone can access an online map, as you know. But your EDO website should present maps in context. This means giving site selectors an idea of the whereabouts of railroads, airports, distribution hubs, distances to major cities. And Darren will go even more into this later when we're talking about visual elements. They also need to get a feel for the character of your location and overall quality. A photo tour is minimal, but a video or VR presentation is even more convincing. Fifth, we've got in-depth workforce information. So in addition to data, site visitors want to know who your community's workforce partners are and what specific educational resources they offer. Number 6, I don't have too much to say about it. We've got incentive policies, zoning, land use, and tax information. And basically this information just must be easy to find, clear, current, concise. You're the experts in this, so we'll just leave it at that. And finally, clear personal contact information. On this one, Warren will also go more in depth into. Your sites should offer simple, low commitment ways to connect, including social media and the chance to sign up for a newsletter or mailing list. Next, we're going to be getting into the do's and don'ts of website content, and I've got Bethany Quinn sent in a recording for us. She's the VP of Strategy and Content Development for Golden Shovel Agency. We will see what she has to say.
I'm going to be presenting information on best practices regarding the content on your website, something that is incredibly important, just as important as the design, because it can be useful for engaging your target audience and also for search engine optimization. increasing the likelihood that your website will be found when someone does a search. So everything centers on being original and being specific. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So what do I mean by being original? Well, first off, your content needs to be made from scratch. We don't want to copy and paste anything from anyone else's website or to copy and paste a variety of things from people's websites to create your own content. It needs to be created from scratch, either by someone in your organization who has writing skills or by professionals such as ourselves. It's very important that when writing content, you have a unique voice. So don't be afraid to show off your personality. This is something that we see a lot of internal tension with economic development organizations, trying to determine, do we want to be casual and friendly and show off our personalities, or do we want to sound more academic in nature? Do we want to sound as though we're a news reporter giving information on what's happening in our community? And really, the only way to answer that is to think about your target audience, what they might care about. We'll go through that next, but also really just to have a good sense of self. Who are you as a community? Who are you as an organization? And how do you want to be perceived? Well, the tone that you write in on your website really conveys that image, that sense of self. And because it is the first time anyone is going to have an encounter with you, how you come across in your content is what they're going to probably think of as they have that impression. So consider the voice. If you want to be academic, that's completely fine. But if you want to be more fun and casual and show off your personality, that's also a best practice because it helps people to connect with you and have a better understanding of who you are. Obviously, original content is important for SEO, so we put that here. Don't copy and paste from other sites because it's bad for SEO. If you do that, it's going to hurt your chances of coming up in an organic Google search. So that's a search someone does that it does not associate with the paid ad, just coming up in those organic search results. In addition, it's plagiarism and that's illegal. So we definitely don't advise that. So when it comes to being specific, I mentioned earlier the need to understand your target audience and what they're interested in, what appeals to them. Well, we look at this as creating a buyer persona. Now, we know that a site selector is not necessarily a buyer. We know you're not selling shoes or socks, but you are selling yourself and you are selling your community. So the same rules apply. You have to know who your target audience is, what do they need, what do they care about, and how you can meet their needs. So at Golden Shovel, we really view this as building a bridge. Your content and your website should be that bridge between the needs of your target audience and what your community has to offer. We need to connect the two. Because if you're talking about your community in terms that are so generic, it could apply to everyone. There's a really good chance you're going to miss the opportunity to speak to the needs of the audience you really want to attract. Ultimately, most organizations we work with have target industries that they're going after. They're not trying to bring everyone to their community because not everyone is a good fit for the current ecosystem, whether that's the talent ecosystem or based on available real estate or infrastructure capacities. Not every industry is going to be ideal for every community. So don't be afraid to narrow down those target audiences, speak to the things that they care about, and don't worry if you don't reach everyone, because ultimately you don't need to. An example of this would be if a community has the capacity for heavy industrial, that's unique. So you want to talk about your water assets. You want to talk about your utility and infrastructure and real estate assets in a way that makes it clear you're actually trying to attract those people, those organizations. If, on the other hand, your community really doesn't have a lot of available space, but you're rich in talent and you have fantastic broadband infrastructure and excellent university systems, you may want to be known as an innovation destination. Speak to those people and don't be worried if that means that you're not talking about your infrastructure assets that would be more appealing to manufacturing or distribution, because that's not what you're going for. So be specific, even if it means not including everyone. You're going to have more success if you do so. Ultimately, the more detailed your buyer persona is, the more you know about who you're trying to attract, the better equipped you will be to speak to their needs and demonstrate how you can meet them. And this applies to attracting workforce and talent as well. Think about the workforce needs that you have in your community and what it means to be one of those individuals. What is family like for them? What is family life like? What are their specific housing needs? Where do they fit? What kind of recreation are they looking for? Get to know that workforce target audience just like you would a business target audience, and speak to their specific needs. And we also have tools, by the way, that can help you to do this, some worksheets. Once you have an understanding of who your buyer is, those target audiences, then your website content should walk them through the buyer's journey. This is very important. It is an actual process that has been proven to work with data. And we start by wanting to attract them to you. So you need to have content that is going to help you come up in that organic search. That's where keywords come in, as you can see that in the first section of our attraction graphic. So keywords, for example, what would somebody type in that's within that target industry or within that workforce segment that would help your website to come up? So we need to think through that, and it's all based on their needs. That's what they'll be searching for. Those are the keywords that need to be in your website content. Also, creating blogs and articles that incorporate those keywords and speak to their needs and are published on your website and through social media. Those are outbound attraction content efforts that can help to bring strangers to your website, making them into visitors. Once you have visitors on your website, the next goal is to convert them into a lead. There's several ways that your content and website design can help to make that possible. Things like built-in forms and call to actions and landing pages, those are all incredibly useful tools. I would say one thing that you can implement on your website content immediately is to make sure you have calls to action on all of your pages, and at least all of your important ones where you think people are visiting the most often. A call to action tells a visitor what you want them to do next. Call us, download this brochure, email us, submit your information, tell them what to do. If you don't tell them what to do, they may go to your website, they may like what they read, but they may not do anything because you haven't given them a specific instruction. Don't miss the opportunity to do so. It's incredibly easy and very effective. And then once you have gotten someone to give you their information through a form capture, for example, signing up for your newsletter or whatnot, then you're able to put them into your CRM, into your email workflow. So that way you can stay in touch with them on a regular basis and hopefully convert them into a new resident, into an actual business prospect, into someone who is going to engage with your community in some capacity. We have automated tools we recommend that can help you to do so you don't have to manually remember to stay in front of them. But the same process applies whether you're using golden shovel tools or not. At the end of the day, your website content is a tool for attracting strangers to your website. If when used correctly, you can make those visitors turn into leads and hopefully convert them into someone who's doing business with your community.
Okay. We'll get into the do's and don'ts of visual aspects from Darren Varley, who's our VP of Client Retention and Creative Services. Also, I did forget to mention that we will be sending a recording and a copy of these slides to everyone who registered, along with, if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the Q&A or chat section. Here we've got Darren.
Retention and creative services here at Golden Shovel. And I hope you enjoy my little segment. I'm going to focus on the visual aspects of economic development websites. And I guess a lot of the tidbits I'm going to cover will cover, any website out there, to be honest with you. For some of you that don't know me, I've been with Golden Shovel for 10 plus years now, playing a variety of roles. Came on board as a freelance graphic designer, web designer. So my background is in the creative part of things for marketing agencies. Have 25 plus years experience with the majority of that in the creative roles. So for example, art direction and creative direction. So that's really kind of my passion. That's my background. That's where I got my education in. And that is kind of what I focus on when I look at websites, right? We got a strong team of creatives here. Some of them look at the content. So some of them look at the functionality. I look at branding. I look at visuals. I look at infographics. So that's my passion. And I'm going to touch on that during my little segment of this presentation. And I hope you enjoy it. Okay, I want to begin with two things or two tasks that you can check off your list before building your economic development website that will make the web design so much easier. I've always said throughout the years when new projects come on board does the client have a beautiful and established brand and brand style guide that the designer can work with? And do they have access to images? Actually, this is across the board in any industry. So if those are two things that can be checked off the list when rebuilding or redesigning or designing your first economic development website, that will make the job for the designer so much easier. And also, it's half the battle, to be honest with you, as far as the engagement and the look and feel of a website. How effective is it? So let's show you some examples of some Golden Shovel clients who are really kind of nailing it when it comes to this. So I'm going to go to this first one here, and this is a new client that just came on board recently, Snohomish County, Washington. They just rebranded themselves, and we're working on designing them a new site right now. And this is their brand style guide. In their case, they're calling it a brand foundation that they provided to us. So this gives us some really clear direction as far as colors, fonts, logo styling, graphic elements. So we'll just take a click through here and you can check this out. So you can see there are some, the rounded corners are some elements that we're going to execute and carry through on the web design that we're going to build for them. You can see their beautiful new logo. Going on to page 3 here, you can see they have a very beautiful and strong color scheme that we're going to work with. And also they established some fonts for us. So we don't have to do the work on finding a font that works with our design. We got that direction right off the bat. And if I go to page 3, here is their business card design. Again, carrying through some of those design elements that we will carry through on the web design that we're building for them. So an established brand, again, is one major thing to check off the list to have a beautiful economic development website and also make the job for our designers much easier. All right. Another thing that's great to get checked off the list before you kick off a new web design project is building up a great, strong gallery of images. All right, so I'm going to click over to some website examples here. And I'm going to show you the folks in Pflugerville who have a very strong photo gallery that we've had to work with and are always consistently adding to that. So you can see some examples right here. So if you're thinking, hey, you know what, we're going to build a new website, but we don't really have a gallery of images. How do we start this? What do we look to shoot? Well, we do have some ideas here to get you going. Shoot your leading employers, shots of their buildings. Even if you can get in the interior of those businesses and get the workforce in action, that would be great. Sometimes there are manufacturers and other businesses that won't allow you into their buildings, but if you can get in there, shots of leading employers with their workers in action would be great for your website. Quality of life, we know that's important. Parks, restaurants, amenities of your community, especially anything that makes your community unique. We all know every client that we've ever brought on board, they have the best parks and best parks in America. They have the greatest walking trails, but every community does have unique aspects that kind of separate themselves. Define, determine what makes you unique as far as quality of life and get some beautiful shots of that. Infrastructure, transportation points, shots of your industrial parks if you have those. Water, are you on water? People love water, right? Get shots of rivers and lakes, etc. If you're close to an airport or have an airport in your area or your community, get shots of that. General cityscapes are awesome. We know that. You can see the folks in Pflugerville have some aerial shots. Drone footage. Hey, everyone has a drone these days, right? Utilize some local photographers and get some great drone shots if you can. Again, on the quality of life angle, healthcare facilities and schools is great. Up some shots of your office. So people may want to know where you work. Where does this work get done, right? Economic development is tough to define. And sometimes you do need to, we all know that we need to kind of justify our actions from time to time, but maybe showing actually your place of work, where you're located we can put those on the About Us page or the Contact Us page, giving people some shots of you in action possibly. And also any landmarks that identify your community. If you have one of those really defining landmarks, include those in your gallery of images. So again, two big things to check off the list when you kick off a website. Do you have a strong brand? If you don't, again, that's another way you can utilize some of your local talent, right? Golden Shovel is definitely here to help you create a brand and a brand identity. But I am sure your local workforce has some very strong creative talent in it, and that's a good way to utilize that local talent. All right, let's talk about some examples. I did talk about a strong photo gallery for us to work with when you kick off a website project, but video, of course, is a really big thing now. So if you are able to get a great video, that's a super engaging way to greet your visitors to your website. And I do want to show you a wonderful one from our client down in Columbus, Georgia. I'm just going to let this run a little bit and talk through it. I feel this one really gives the visitor a great snapshot of that community as a whole. They got a beautiful river that runs through town. You can actually whitewater raft through it. Check it out here. Some great aerial shots. Workers in action, like I just mentioned. They do have a local college in the area, so some shots of that. So video, obviously becoming much more popular, becoming much more easy to execute, and a great engaging way to greet visitors to your website. And these folks in Columbus, Georgia are doing a wonderful job of that. I also want to show you some other examples. Here's a client that we have down in Bastrop, Texas, who I think do a great, I just have a very strong and sophisticated brand. And this is one I always like to show off on when I have the opportunity. You can see, again, a very sophisticated color palette. Came to us with a brand style guide. So I'm just going to give you a scroll down here. Here's a stylized map. That is going to be something I'm going to talk about a little bit later in my presentation here. So again, one of my favorites, favorite websites in the Golden Shovel portfolio, the folks in Bastrop, Texas, who did a great job of providing us a strong brand, and Golden Shovel did a great job of building a website based off of that brand. Here's another long-standing client down in Kentucky, One East Kentucky. They again have a very strong brand. They have the video banner, as you can see, that really is very engaging as well. And I'm just going to scroll down and give you a shot of their logo. Very bright color scheme, as you can see. So that's a logo that sticks in your mind. When people see that arrow pointing east and those bright colors, they know it's One East Kentucky. So the folks in One East Kentucky did a wonderful job of developing a very strong brand, again, to make our job much easier at Golden Shovel to build them a wonderful website. Okay, the next topic I want to discuss with you folks is the advent or the more normalcy of long scrolling websites. I get that question a lot during design presentations. Hey, this site scrolls a really long ways. And do we really need all that content on the homepage? Well, this really isn't a do or a don't. I would say I'm going to talk about a why here. So why do we have the long scrolling websites these days? Well, let's walk through some of the reasons. So if you want to go back in kind of the quote unquote old days of the websites, We did follow a lot of the same rules as newspaper. We want all the relevant content above the fold, right? That's really still the case. We do want our strong imagery. We still want our main messaging. We still want our welcome text. We really do still want that above the fold, but we also want to include some other content about our organization, our community. We really want to touch all the bases. And why do we want to do that? Well, there's a few reasons. One is kind of the advent of the mobile device, right? People are checking out your site on their phones. In the case of the phones, if they're in an exploratory mode, they're doing a lot of swiping, in this case, swiping up. So we really want to touch on some of the main points on your homepage. One thing I do really want to emphasize is that golden shovel, and this is one of the rules that we follow, is that any content you would see on your homepage, if it's a long scrolling homepage, would be represented within the main navigation. I'm showing you a Ramsey County, Minnesota example here. So I'm going to show you the scroll of this page here in a second. But any content that you're going to see on this scrolling homepage would be represented within the main menu. Okay, so nothing would be missed, I guess is my point. But again, main content, main messaging, main imagery, always above the fold. Okay. Another point I want to talk about as far as why we have the long scrolling page, long scrolling home pages, kind of runs hand in hand with some of our content philosophies, right? On the content side of things, we want to tell stories about our clients. Your homepage can tell a story visually by either images, teaser content, and then links to more extensive content about that specific topic, right? So we want to tell a story visually on your homepage as well as narratively within our content. Another thing that's kind of nice is that, they always say we want everything to be within 2 clicks. Well, if you're going to tease a lot of content on your homepage, you're really often eliminating any click at all as far as a client as far as a visitor exploring your site and getting information about your organization, your community. Another thing I do want to bring up as far as the long scrolling sites is our job is harder now. Our audience has expanded, right? We used to be our main goals were, hey, we want to attract a business and we want to fill land and we want to fill buildings. Well, we got a big problem with workforce now. So we got to get that workforce in our community, right? We have these jobs to fill. So our audiences have been expanding. So we got a lot more information that we need to get across in a bigger, a more long-winded story to tell. All right, so I mentioned I've been showing some examples here throughout my presentation here. So let's show you Ramsey County, which does have a fairly long scrolling homepage. Just to kind of walk through what we're showcasing here. So we've already talked about the strong imagery, right? And Ramsey County is definitely checking that box with this imagery of this county in the Twin Cities Metro here, the main hub being St. Paul. They also have some aspects of their site that they really want to showcase, right? They have a wonderful job board, the COVID-19 resources. These guys were kind of the leaders as far as the East Metro goes in the cities, as far as getting out information. So that's still a prominent part of their site. They have a great incentives dashboard. They want to showcase that as well. Here's their welcome map, welcome text, and their stylized map. I'm going to talk about maps here in my next segment. Some tidbits about the county, they want to showcase those. Featured news, something Golden Shovel always encourages featuring on their homepage. They do have some reports they want to give some more attention to. Projects that they're working hard on. Putting faces to the organization was important to this client. So they have their team on the homepage, as well as some other initiatives that they are spending a fair amount of time marketing, all right? So there's a lot these folks want to tell and convey to their audience, and the scrolling website does check that off. And again, I do want to reiterate, nothing would be missed if one does not scroll down to the bottom of the homepage. It will always be represented within the main navigation. All right, the last topic I want to talk about that definitely falls within the do category is the use of a stylized map on your homepage. That is something that we definitely encourage here at Golden Shovel with any client that comes on board. is we want the visitors to the site, whether they're a site selector, whether it's a workforce exploring a new career opportunity or a business looking to relocate. We want to make sure that visitor knows exactly where you are located within seconds, right? I mentioned at the beginning of the call that I grew up as a graphic designer, and I still do some design work here at Golden Shovel. And really, that's one of my more enjoyable parts of a design project is creating that stylized map. So that map can show as much detail as you want, but basically the ultimate point is we want to convey where you are located within seconds of arrival or within seconds of looking at that map. So let's show you some examples that Golden Shovel has done. This is Tehama County, California, right? Small rural county in Northern California. Someone comes here, they're familiar with California, right? They're familiar with LA, they're familiar with San Francisco, San Diego, et cetera, but where in the heck is Tehama County? Well, if I scroll down here, you can see that this map tells within seconds of where Tehama County, California is. It shows a nice little cutout of the county as a whole, but then also the proximity to local markets, the proximity to major markets within that region. Okay, so we know exactly where they're located, and we know how long it takes to take a drive to Sacramento, for example. One of the many clients Golden Shovel has in Texas is Conroe. And this is a stylized map that we designed for them. Now, Texas is in a little different boat than a lot of other states in the US. Everyone knows where Texas is. Everyone knows the shape of Texas. So we really don't have to show a wide lens for their location, right? We know the shape of Texas, visitors know that. So we just need to know where they're located. You can see that they fall within that magic triangle in Texas from San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. So this map right here tells a great story of where Conroe is located. And also one thing that you really want to focus on showcasing on these maps, you don't have to show everything, but major highways is a really good idea. If you're close to a port, you might want to show that as the folks in Conroe do. If we want to actually zoom in when you're more of a rural community, some of your local highways might be a good idea as well. So again, these guys do a very good job of showcasing their location, and also they have a nice little call out here that shows their proximity to major markets in their region. Now, sometimes our clients actually need to show more than just their county or their community or even their region. They may have to show a global view. So maybe there might be a need for more than one map on the homepage. And we've developed this functionality for a few of our clients that show 3 different perspectives. So you can see it scroll through here for the folks in Skagit County, Washington. Global view was important to them. They needed to show a regional view, and also they need to give their communities within their specific county a little bit of attention here. So we also have a county view. So sometimes that map or that location is a little more complex than one map, and we have the ability to create this nice little rotating banner set here showcasing different perspectives of that client. All right, that concludes my part of this presentation. I hope you at least gleaned a few little tidbits of info from that. Again, my name is Darren Barley, and if you are a client of Golden Shovel, we'll see you down the road. And also, if you are a prospect, hopefully we can work together in the future. Thanks again, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Darren, for that. Next, we'll be moving into how to know if your website is outdated. And this time we've got Warren Westcott, our National Sales Manager, sending in his recording. We're just gonna get right into that.
Hello, this is Warren Westcott, National Sales Manager with Golden Shovel Agency. Happy to be with you today to talk about how to know if your website is outdated. I spend tons of time every week, every month, every quarter, looking over economic development websites that are done by our competitors. And a lot of times I'm really just trying to assess, hey, what's working well here? What isn't working very well? How contemporary are these websites? Meaning, how recent do they look, or maybe the opposite of looking recent? Also, are they using a lot of the tools that are available today to make the life of economic developers a little easier so that they can leverage their website and not just use it as a place to find information? So I'll share some of those details with you here via slide. So Why is this so important? Well, websites consistently rank as the #1 strategic tool in economic development. And that's through talking with site selectors, with EDOs, with the business community, with consultants, anyone who's using these websites consistently to try and access information, get analytics, gain perspective in as to whether a community is worth the next step. And a lot of times, if they don't find what they're looking for on the website, they'll just move on to another community, because the days of them reaching out via phone, maybe as the first step, is kind of long gone. They don't do that really much anymore. Is more the conversation is, I did my research on your website and I have these questions for you. So again, if your website isn't great, isn't doing everything it should, you might just be missing out on those calls and maybe not even knowing about it. So also, your website is going to be viewed by more people than you'll ever be able to reach through the one-to-one contact method. That's you and your team, just because there's so much power, reach, social media that can lead people to your website, all these different facets that basically show the potential that's out there. And if you're not using that potential, then obviously you're missing out. But you want to be in a position where you're really leveraging digital. Also, if it's not persuasive and compelling in nature, if you're really kind of stuck along the journalistic, facts, figures, a story here and there, that website will likely not be remembered. Another reason that it wouldn't be remembered is because it's templated and it looks like 10 to 12 other organizations that have the same template. That's not good either. But those are some big things. So persuasive, compelling, you have to get them to want to do something on your website, download a white paper, share your contact information, sign up for a webinar, get on the newsletter list, whatever that might be, but you want to be able to track things. And if yours is not doing that, you want to change that. It also needs to be effective beyond the local audience. Too many times there's a little bubble, if you will, for the local, and people are working really hard to make sure the local people are seeing this information, or the local groups are seeing this, when in essence, to get growth or to leverage workforce attraction, business attraction, those kind of things, you have to be able to reach beyond your local audience to the regional, the national, international, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But if you're not set up for a website that can do all of those, you're probably missing out on opportunities. And again, local is local, that's great, but that's probably not your core audience. So what is the shelf life of your current website? Too many times people don't realize what the shelf life is for a website, and it's squarely a 3-year shelf life. So if it's beyond that, again, people generally look at it and say, gosh, this community might not be very innovative, or maybe they're trying to save money in areas that they shouldn't. Marketing communications is usually probably not the place to try and save money, if you will, as far as just be really thrifty, because again, it's your whole community that you're trying to benefit here. Also, if the website was created by a website generalist, is that noticeable to an industry professional? Because again, generalists are only going to know so much. They just don't have the connections. They don't have the knowledge. They're not going to the conferences. The things that basically are trending in economic development is going to be a one-way conversation from the economic developer to the website generalist. Whereas if you hire a group that has that background, they're going to be bringing ideas to you, trends to you, and that's definitely a different pathway. So this has happened many, many times, but have you ever avoided referencing your website in conversations purely because you knew that wasn't the best foot forward for, your image, or the best foot forward for your community? That happens quite a bit as well. So if you've ever done that, generally there's going to be a few pages you really like, some pages you really don't like, or some pages that you're like, oh gosh, I hope they don't go there. Also, does it resemble a digital brochure? That there are so many sites that I go out to that really resemble a digital brochure with some simple buttons. Again, not a dynamic search tool on there, not a CMS or content management system to house that information. And those are really, the digital brochures are just really almost a sore thumb as far as showing off that that you haven't put a lot of time towards your digital image or strategy. Are you successfully balancing the content with strong and up-to-date visuals? So a lot of times people have really, really heavy text, and it just text after PDF after download or whatever it might be, and it really can kind of overwhelm someone who wants strong visuals to support the content. So that's just word to the wise, that's important to do. Easy access to relevant information is highly valued over visually stunning designs. So there are some industries where that's really handy, visually stunning designs, but that's usually going to be fashion industry or sports tennis shoes or computers or whatever that might be, but it's really not economic development. They're more focused on easy and also the 3-click rule. So if you want to go to Wikipedia, look up the 3-click rule. That's generally going to talk about the frustration level if people can't find things within 3 clicks. They often don't stay on the site sometimes. Also, are you pitching yourselves as genuinely unique or generically forgettable? Here's the fun part of this is I've read many websites where there's 2 paragraphs, and the paragraphs say things like, we've got friendly people, we've got a high standard of living here, we've got great education, you name it, lots of available land, things like that. But you could easily take the name of another community and insert it into that same paragraph, and you wouldn't know the difference between the two. There's nothing relatably different about that paragraph. So I always encourage people, don't get caught in that trap, because that's a surefire way to, even though you're saying the right things, if you don't have something to back it up, it backfires on you. Also, is your GIS mapping, demographic information, analytic data relevant and current? Has to be current. If it's not current, if it's 2018, 2019, you're in for probably a reminder from somebody that your content is not current, and it could really backfire in a way where they just don't consider you at all because of that. Are you offering multiple ways to interact and get questions answered? So social media is part of that. If you've got a LinkedIn profile, I still run into people without LinkedIn profiles. But that's just a definite thing that you also don't want to shield your name. You don't want it to be info@EDCXYZ. You're in the business. That comes with the territory is to put your name, your image, your contact information, as well as the staff members out there. Shouldn't be really working with forms anymore. These, kind of form, I'll send a form, hope they respond back. And also, if you can't edit or change your website's content yourself, you should be able to. That should be a platform that should be available to you. You shouldn't have to, lean on your website provider or pay a one-time charge or get an invoice for something like that. That's a thing of the past. Here's just an example of a look and feel of a website that really isn't using all of the full potential, the real estate, if you will. If you look on the right and left-hand side of this image, they're really using the middle, but not the whole website page. And then the buttons are, somewhat generic. The photo is not of a professional nature. There's just a lot of things that are not working in this example. Maybe don't take my word for it. Dean Barber of Barber Business Advisors is really a sharp writer. I really always enjoy reading Dean's stuff, but he wrote a piece on LinkedIn a while back called ED Websites, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I really like a lot of the things that he brought up and brought a lot of them in context. Of course, he's a longtime expert in the industry. So if you get a chance to read that, please do. And lastly, I would say avoid bargain hunting when you're doing economic development marketing and communications. This image of the guy at the tattoo shop is one of my favorites. It says, there will always be someone who says they can do it cheaper. What I would say, and this is me talking, is most people would rather be the long-term strategic champion who went with a higher quality organization, they paid more to get better results, rather than being tempted to go with a one-time bargain that could lead to more problems in the long run. And believe me, they usually do. So just a kind of word to the wise, and I'll sign out here. Again, thanks for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to one of my colleagues. Thanks so much.
Okay, we've got one more segment left about accessibility. And then you are definitely going to want to stay till the end. We're going to be pushing right up to the end of the hour, but we've got a great resource for you guys to be taking as you do your research for an economic development website. So stay tuned for details on that.
In this presentation, we're going to take a brief look at ways you can improve the accessibility of your website. There are several areas of consideration when dealing with accessibility. The primary ones for meeting government requirements deal with disabilities for those who have problems with auditory issues, cognitive issues, neurological, physical, speech impediments, or visual interactions. In addition to dealing with disabilities for those users, there are benefits to others when you improve the accessibility of a website. This can be beneficial to users of non-traditional devices such as phones, watches, TVs, etc. Users with age-related concerns, which deals with loss of vision, decreased dexterity, etc. Users with temporary disabilities, someone who's got their arm in a cast, someone who doesn't have their glasses on them at that moment. Users with situational limitations, such as in a shared environment where you can't necessarily play a video, you can't make noise or disturb other people around you. And users who have slow or limited internet connectivity. There are several aspects of accessibility that are traditionally grouped together. The first aspect is perception. This means that your site should not be invisible to the available senses of the user. The next aspect is operability, which means your website should not require interactions which your users cannot perform. The next area is navigation. Your user needs to be able to move through your site and be able to find all of the content that you have available. And the final area is understanding. So the user needs to be able to learn or do whatever it is your site is offering to teach them or help them to do. Perceivability and navigability are the two that we're going to look at today. That's because they deal with some of the simpler changes that you can start with. And that is mainly dealing with vision issues. Sites are essentially designed to be perceived through sight. So you need to address that issue for anyone who is not going to be able to see. The two main areas that you would deal with, or the audiences that you can group together, are those with no functioning vision, and users like that tend to use a screen reader. This is a device which will go through all the text on a website and read it out or provide it in Braille so that the user can interact with the content in that way. The other type of user is someone who does have functioning sight, but it is limited. And so then they need some accommodations made. Those can be made through the site and how you populate your site, or they can be made through the individual user's browser and the custom settings that they set up. So it is important that you make sure your site is not built in such a way that it's going to prevent that user from overriding your site with their own browser settings that will help them to interact with your content. So simple improvements that we're going to be looking at deal with page titles, headings, structure, alt attributes, color and contrast, and text size. So the first area is a page title. The page title is used in browser tabs in Windows to tell a user what that page is about, and it's also used in search results as the title for your page. Your page title should be brief because it has a very small space to display in some cases, so you want to make sure that the important information shows. It should be unique so that somebody can tell which actual page of your site they're on from when they navigate from one page to the next. And it should be informative so that people who have multiple tabs open or who are looking through search results are going to be able to tell exactly what your site is about and if it's relevant for what they're trying to do. Next area of discussion is headings. So headings are section titles within a page. The page title that we just looked at deals with what the page is about as a whole, but within a page you might have multiple paragraphs of text. You may have grouped it into sections, and those sections need a title. Those tiles are provided by using headings. Your headings should be hierarchical. So if you have a section and then within that you have several subsections, you want to make sure you apply the right level of heading to each one so a user can see this topic is related to that, it's comes under that, or comes as a new section. Your heading should also be brief and they should be descriptive. Your heading should not be omitted. Tempting as it is to think that if you have no headings on your page, you won't have any wrong headings. Not having page headings is also going to cause you accessibility problems, just different ones. Headings should also not be used for formatting. So it's very tempting to get your text to be a pretty color and a big bold size by using a heading, but that is going to confuse users who have accessibility issues. So over here, we have an example of what a screen reader would see of a page which has poorly used headings. So you can see there are missing headings, there are confusing headings, there are whole paragraphs that are being treated as headings. This makes for a very difficult time for someone to scan through the site using a screen reader and see where the content is that they're interested in. The example below shows what that same page can look like as an outline when the headings are corrected. So you can see everything makes sense. You can see the hierarchy. You could skip to a given section. And this is also going to help users who don't have any accessibility issues because they can visually see these headings and it will let them find the area that is of interest to them. The next topic is general structure. So this means, does your page make sense if a user doesn't perceive it as it is laid out? Your structure should be grouped and flowing logically when viewed in the order it's included in the page. Make sure to understand that the order that content is included in the page is not the same as content, the way the content is displayed in the page. So we'll see an example of that in a moment. Your structure should not be laid out to require vision or a specific device or screen to perceive content relationships. The best example of this is when tables are used to try and create content layouts. So you can see here, we've got a table, we've got the border showing just to illustrate that it's a table so that somebody could get a columnar layout. Besides the fact that you've got some weird spacing issues that just came along with using this trick, a screen reader is going to read your table row by row, which means it's going to read this heading and then this heading and then this heading and then this heading and then these paragraphs. So you've lost the relationship of this heading goes with this heading goes with this. And that's where we deal with the issue of the order of content is included in the page as opposed to the order it's displayed in the page. The more correct example is this content has now been changed to a columnar div layout. And then that means that the site screen reader is going to read this title and then this text, and then it's going to move over here and read this title and this text, and this title and this text, and so on. There are other examples of structure, but this is the most traditionally violated one. The next area we have is alt attributes, which is also called alt text. And alt text is a text description of each image on your web page. Your alt text should be addressed for every image on a web page. It should give context to the image's presence on the page. It should include any text which is conveying a message within the image. So if you have text that's saved as part of a banner or something like that, you want to make sure that you provide that text in your alt attribute. And it should be null if the image is purely decorative. So if you have just a pretty little swirly graphic to separate two paragraphs to give people reading the site a moment to visually rest, you don't need to provide that to screen readers, but you do need to indicate that it's a null image so that the screen reader knows it can skip over it. Alt attributes should not be long or overly descriptive because this is interrupting the flow of your text in order to describe what this image is. They should not be repetitive. If you have a series of images and all you can say is these are all pictures of a lake, then either your pictures are actually decorative and they need to be null, or you're not providing enough description of why that image is there and why it's relevant to the content. And your alt attribute should also not be irrelevant. So this one gets a little bit more difficult to exactly master, but as an example, if you have a web page with a picture of a dog on it, if this web page is talking about good pets, then all you need to specify is that the image is of a dog. If this is a page talking about breeds of dog, then you need to specify what breed of dog you're showing. If this is a page talking about animal health, then maybe you need to specify that this is a dog showing the teeth and gums of that dog. So you want to think about what the sighted viewer is getting from that image and adding to the content that they're reading and provide that in your alt text. The next area is color and contrast. So you want to use colors which are distinguishable for all your users. Your colors should be sufficiently contrasting for text to be legible and images to be distinguishable. You need to use suitable pairings to accommodate those with color blindness. And your colors should not be overly high contrast, which is referred to as high luminosity. A good example of this is using bright yellow text on a black background where it sort of almost glows. That effect can make it very difficult for those with weak vision, and especially difficult for those with dyslexia to actually read such text. Another aspect of color and contrast is visual cues. So you want to avoid relying on the user being able to see the color to identify the content they need. And on a related note, you also want to avoid spatial cues. What this means is that if you have text on a page, you don't want to tell someone, click the green button at the right to win a free car, because they probably very much like to win a free car. But if they don't have vision, or if they don't have the ability to distinguish the red button from the green button, they're not going to be able to find that. The other aspect is dealing more with responsiveness, which is that if you say click the button on the right, someone on a very small screen may not have a button on the right. That button may have been moved someplace else. So you want to make sure that you are relying on cues that are accessible to everyone, or even better, specify what a thing does within it. So don't tell people to click the link over there, just say where the link is, what it's going to do. Final aspect we're going to look at is text size. So you want to make sure your text is sized and laid out to be legible. That means your text should be at least 15 pixels. That's based on some current web standards. This does change over time, so it's worth keeping track of. And you want to aim for a maximum of 20 words per line. So this means in any given paragraph of text, there aren't any more than 20 words before the line wraps to the next. That is the most that even an average reader can comfortably track across a line. If you have an audience where you think that may be an issue, you may want to even aim for fewer. The other aspect to consider is responsiveness. One of the popular design trends right now is to go for larger and larger fonts in your body text, which is great for the first two requirements. But if you are on a cell phone and you're trying to read size 24 text, that's going to be a not very enjoyable experience for you. So over here, we have a quick little demo of that. You can see text at various sizes, and at a very large size in a very narrow space, it's not very fun to read. The middle two examples are a bit nicer, but the one on the far right is quite small and difficult to read the text. If you're all comfortable with some of the considerations we've already looked at, here are a couple extra areas you can start looking at for improving the accessibility of your website. The first one is dealing with moving, flashing, or blinking content. Ideally, you want to use that very sparingly. You want to allow the user to control these elements, whether that means giving them the ability to stop whatever is moving, flashing, or blinking, or actually suppress it fully. And you particularly want to avoid anything that could create a flickering effect. This can, in extreme cases, it can trigger seizures, but can also just trigger headaches or general discomfort among average users. If you have a reason that you have to have such flickering content, you want to make sure that you're going to give prior warning, so that anyone who's going to have problems with it has the ability and the time to avoid it. And then you also want to provide alternatives to accessing any content that was only available through whatever flickering medium was going to be played. And the other aspect to look at is multimedia alternatives. Because video and audio files are becoming more and more popular as a way to communicate over the internet, you want to make sure that you are providing captioning, transcripts, or audio descriptions as suitable for such content for the users who are not able to see or hear those pieces. There are machine-generated tools that can help you with this, and those can do quite a bit for you, but I do recommend that you check the quality of every individual piece when using machine-generated tools, just because they are subject to certain quirky errors. So those are some areas that you can look at when you want to start improving the accessibility of your website. There is a great deal more that can be done, but as a beginning, this is a great place to start. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. That was Charity Goddard, our development director. So finally, we'll get into our last little bit, budget considerations to consider with the website design project. Go through this really quick. The main things you want to do is identify your goals and tools you like to use. We did create a planning guide for you. It's just a little preview of the checklist that you'll get with it. You can check off what is most essential to you, or things that you might not know about and need to ask different marketing or web developer companies about. Basically, it comes down to what your goals and tools you'd like to use are, and how fast you'd like your website done, what type of specialties your agency is able to do. As you can see, our team is filled with a lot of different people that have their own specialties. And during each phase of the website development process, each person is involved. Something important to keep in mind, you are building the digital gateway to your communities. Many times it's the first and most important interaction with your community. So you want your website done well. So as mentioned, here's the free website planning guide that you can download. You can use the short link here, or again, we'll be sending you an email with this link as well. Also, if you wouldn't mind giving us a follow on one of our social media channels, we're Golden Shovel Agency or just Golden Shovel on LinkedIn. We're constantly pushing out great stuff like this, so you can be in the know, and we share a lot of professional resources that you can use for both personal goals and your EDO organization. And if you have any questions, and we kind of ran out of time to answer any during the webinar, but feel free to reach out to anyone on our team. But here's our sales team's contact information, and we'd love to help or answer any questions that you've got. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us.